This video is brought to you by Guards 2 Chaos in Hell. Stick around at the end to find out more. Game design is ultimately an exercise in number crunching. Walk speed, jump height, gravity, attack damage, reload speed, all of these are numbers, and the whole feel of the game can shift by adjusting them even slightly. Some games have absolute legions of numbers, especially role-playing games. Health, stamina, defense, strength, dexterity, poison buildup, number of legs. But it's surprising how many of the stats in a standard sort of combat-based RPG ultimately boil down to one of only two things: health or attack. The player's capacity for damage and their capacity to deliver damage. I mean, when you think about it, defense and armor are just loft conversions bolted onto health, and strength and stamina and mana are just different ways of managing damage potential. That's why it's academically interesting to consider the exceptions that have existed throughout gaming history, the character stats that are significant gameplay mechanics despite having no direct relationship with either preserving health or dealing damage. And there's one specific recurring one that I'm particularly fond of and wish to highlight today. Maybe it's down to my love of Lovecraftian horror or the fact that mental stability is something I worry society at large is lacking these days, but I've got a soft spot for sanity meters. Now, there are quite a few games with something it calls a sanity meter, or a fear meter, or a frenzy meter, or whatever, but often these will functionally just be something tying back into health again. The sanity bar in American McGee's Alice, for example, is in practical terms merely what armor is in shooters. It just reduces the damage you take. The question that hangs over the sanity meter is what happens if you run out of it, and I've played more than one game where you start losing health instead. And yeah, that's just armor with a fancy name. I'm thinking of the frenzy meter in Bloodborne. It fills up, and then it's like the game runs out of ideas and has a little panic. Yeah, you lose a bunch of health. Sucks to be you. Is it supposed to represent something? Like our dude goes so crazy he starts punching himself in the bollocks? No, the sanity mechanics in games that really interest me are cases where losing sanity results in the game having leave to start fucking you about in interesting, creative ways. A game a lot of people will bring up at this point is the Lovecraftian generational survival horror Eternal Darkness on the Nintendo GameCube. Insufferable trivia nerds will also be quick to mention that Nintendo took out a patent on sanity meters thanks to that game, and that might be why there aren't that many games around with decent sanity mechanics. Yes, I know, but A, that patent expired in 2021, and B, even before then, I don't think Nintendo ever made a serious attempt to enforce it. I mean, I made a game with a sanity mechanic, and I don't recall any frighteners in Donkey Kong masks breaking down my door. But more on that game later. Yes, Eternal Darkness had a sanity meter, and when it got low, fucky things started to happen. The camera went on a Dutch angle, weird sound effects played, marble busts would turn to look at you and stuff, but it also did things to mess with you, the player, not just the player character. It'd pretend like it was deleting your save file, or that the game was over, or that flies were crawling on your screen, which was fun, and is fun to talk about, but the problem was, it was a system that only really worked once. The first time a descending TV volume meter appears on screen, you're fooled by it, you start looking around for the remote you might be sitting on, but after you're informed the game was merely fucking with you, it's shown its hand completely. You will never be fooled by it fucking with you again. In fact, I found myself deliberately playing the game at low sanity after that because I wanted to see all the creative sanity effects, at which point it's kind of failed as a horror game, hasn't it? I like Eternal Darkness, I played a lot of it back in the day, that's why I have so many opinions on where it fucked up. From a gameplay design perspective, the effect of losing sanity has to be disadvantageous, surely, and in Eternal Darkness, it just wasn't. Yes, you lose health if you've got zero sanity as armor again, boo, but regain just enough sanity to stay at low rather than nothing, and that doesn't happen, and you can still enjoy the insanity effects. So what can you do to a player with zero sanity that they'd want to avoid that isn't just draining their health? Well, taking away control of the protagonist is one approach. Pretty good metaphor for mental illness overall, actually. Tabletop role-playing seems to be fond of this one, especially Vampire the Masquerade and everything else in the World of Darkness, in which players have a humanity stat or equivalent that indicates how close they are to succumbing to the beast within. If you run out, your character basically gets taken away from you and becomes a dangerous NPC. The equivalent in video games would be something like the fear meter in games like Haunting Ground or Clock Tower, where the character eventually cracks and starts running around like a mad thing. See also the confusion status effect in many RPGs that makes characters attack their allies. Compromising the character's reliability is what pretty much sums all this up, like the permanent behavioural problems characters in Darkest Dungeon acquire when they go doolally. Or in Amnesia the Dark Descent, if Daniel has low sanity, roaming monsters find it easier to spot him. That's also a staple of asymmetric horror multiplayer games like Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th. The player controlling the monster finds it much easier to spot human players with high fear, as they're so mad with panic they keep honking like enraged geese while trying to hide. I think my favourite thing to do with the sanity mechanic is to mess with the player's sense of reality in ways that make them voluntarily do things that work against their interests, along the lines of that one bit in Kane and Lynch where the player controlling Lynch starts seeing the very valuable hostages as hostile pig monsters. This was the approach I wanted to take with my own aforementioned Lovecraftian horror game, The Consuming Shadow. I'd have hallucinatory monsters spawn in front of insane players to tempt them into wasting their extremely limited ammo. But that game also featured one of my own personal favourite game design ideas that I've had, if you'll forgive me tooting my own horn for a bit. When low on sanity, buttons in the game's GUI would start randomly changing to say, kill yourself, doing so more rapidly the more insane you are. And if you accidentally click a button while it says kill yourself, you get taken to a special minigame where you have to mash buttons to pull the gun away from your own head. I think that's all I can think of in terms of interesting ways sanity has been applied as a gameplay mechanic. Do let me know in the comments if you can think of any more. I have to sign off for now. I'm currently hallucinating a large burly man standing outside my window holding a brick, and for some reason he's wearing a Mario hat.
This video is brought to you by Guards 2 Chaos in Hell, the upcoming turn-based tactics game with extremely simple rules but even more extremely deep mechanics. In order to survive the hordes of the underworld and face the devil himself, you'll need to choose a party of 4 fearless heroes. This includes a crossbow-wielding demon hunter, the brave and powerful warrior princess, and this absolutely delightful curmudgeon of an alchemist.
Oh, I hates it when monsters hit their balls over my fence.
I love him, and that's what he sounds like in my head. The unique battle system has you continually swapping your heroes from offensive front lines to the safety of the back, meaning that you'll always need to be planning one step ahead to
Get those monsters off my lawn!
Settle down, Alchemist. Over 160 missions to survive, 8 heroes, each with a deep upgradable tech tree, but only one crotchety old man. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to Steam, wishlist Guards 2 Chaos in Hell. Check out the free playable prologue today because you wouldn't want to disappoint this old codger, would you?